their experiences with Mark, their fun with Mark. First will be his cousin, Jeff Alcasian. Jeff, there we go.
That's a full room. So, I'm one of the cousins, and I met Mark when I was born. And when I was younger, with my brother Steve, Mark was able to tell us how things were. And if you're curious about that statement, the difference between an English and a French horn I won't do it, I promise. Because whatever I say will be wrong. I promise. So then there was a big gap of time that we had the families do what they do. Everybody goes there off their different ways. And I was very fortunate to spend a tremendous amount of time with Mark's dad, my Uncle Harach, in the last probably 3 or 4 years of his life when he was writing a novel, 3 or 4 novels. And to be able to spend that kind of time with somebody so incredibly talented and wise was a gift for me. But the bigger gift was when we reconnected with Mark and his family a few years back, and when Mark came into the house, my heart dropped into my stomach because of the incredible resemblance that Mark had to his father. And I literally, you know, those moments where you just drop and the wind comes out of your lungs, and right? And then I spent the next, I guess 4 hours outside telling Mark about his dad. In the later years, Mark did not have a great relationship with his dad, and so Mark gave me an incredible gift, and I'll tell you why. I spent the last few years with his dad, my Uncle Harach, and to get that kind of knowledge and wisdom and love from somebody who it didn't quite come out very easily, and then to be able to pass that on to his son after his death was an incredible gift, because I could not share that with anybody who really understood it. And so Mark and I sat in the backyard, and between different comments I would make to Mark, like what a jerk he was at times, and I was able to teach Mark about his dad and why his dad was the way he was and why Mark was the way he was too. And it was a blessing for both of us, and it was one of those gifts that I will never forget. And so Mark, seriously, thank you. One of the interesting things of being in Mark's presence was I felt so small intellectually. I'm a smart guy, but I pale in comparison to this guy. And the difference is that when you're with smart people, they don't really kind of push it on you. Mark does. Yes, I know how dumb I am. I know. And I'm smart. It was very interesting to hear Mark's stories as he grew older and how similar he was to his dad, because we would talk about a musician here, a musician there, and he'd tell me what a piece of crap that was. And I'm like, not everybody's as gifted as you. Oh no, they're just doing it wrong. And I realized that he wasn't critical, he was a perfectionist. And so was his father. And you just have to sit and just enjoy and embrace how he delivered perfectionism, because he was there. I never met a guy who lived his life on his own terms, that to this degree. Are you coming to the family gathering? Maybe. Is your family coming? Yeah, I think so. Are you in the same car? No. Why not? well, they're going to go here, and then I'm going to ride the bike. Are you going to come? I think so, maybe. Are you, like, what time? I don't know. All right, cool. Make extra. Mark may come. And then he'd show up, a little late, a lot late, and he'd be in leathers and, like, okay, you're here. That was Mark to me. And Mark was always my big cousin. And he just was such an incredible tie to our collective history that is very rich and colorful and unique. And I just have to say that I was blessed with the short time I got to know him as an adult, and I'm going to miss him a lot. So, dude, I hope you're riding the hell out of it up there. Thank you.
Next is a musician friend and good friend, Chip Smith.
Can everybody hear me? Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank Jeff for breaking the ice. Very important, because I think if we were completely reverential through this entire thing, we would not do service to Mr. Yakubian. You ready, Mark? First of all, a little background. I met Mark 20 years ago. I was working down in Long Beach, and a fellow at a music store down there said, you should come up to this gig I play at the Kibitz Room in Cantor's Deli up in Hollywood. And I was just getting back into the horns. I was a commercial composer at the time and hadn't played in a while. So I went up there, and I noodled behind a singer named Tina Stevens for a few months, and then Mark showed up. And now, I'm from New England, so kind of a WASP background. So we scope out new people, and, we're a little circumspect. Not Mark. He liked something in my playing, and he immediately got in my personal space. Man, what are you doing there? What mouthpiece are you playing? What do you got? And I was brought up to be polite, so I wasn't rude, but I tried to kind of shake him off a little bit like a dog that might be, humping your leg or something. And I went away, and the next week I came back, and Mark was there again. And we had the same thing happen. And as I'm sure he has done with many of you, he broke me down. He broke me down with sheer enthusiasm. If he hated something, he hated it with a passion. It was the worst thing that had ever done. It was the worst piece of music. It was the worst piece of crap. But if he liked it, he was your most staunch defender. And he liked something in my playing, and we became very good friends. He eventually kind of nosed me out of that gig at the Kibitz Room, because after Mark would noodle, there was no noodle room left. But that's fine. I moved on to some other things. We then started to take an annual hike up to the High Sierras. And this would involve going up to Mammoth or Bishop, acclimating ourselves for one night, doing a hike that was long enough to encompass the day, but get back in time so we could take a shower and have a steak. That was my idea of camping. And the first, I don't know, I think we did it for about 13 years maybe. The first 5 or 6 years, he brought every instrument he owned. And I am serious. So we would load up the car, and it would be like, oh, I gotta get my oboe, I gotta get my English horn, I gotta get my flute, I gotta get my salve. I said, what on earth is going on? Oh, I need all of them. I need all of them. We're gonna play some duets too. I can tell you as a woodwind specialist that 8,000 feet, which is I think what Mammoth is about, is incredibly dry. Reeds don't work up there. And trying to play duets is impossible. And physically just not fun. So it didn't seem to matter each year that I would present this to him. Mark, last year we couldn't play duets. I don't think the altitude has changed up there. Oh no, man, it's going to be different because I've taken these reeds and I put them in hydrogen. I got a special process. And we go up there and the reeds were awful and we couldn't play. One time, we took a lovely hike. I think he was getting more back into the flute or something. We took a lovely hike and we stopped for lunch or something, as we would do about three hours in. And the next thing I knew, he had his flute out. He had packed his flute in and he was determined to serenade the canyon. So he played his flute. I have a picture of that. I wish I could find it. But so we did that, and we had all sorts of adventures, which I could go on and about, but I won't. The final thing that I think was most important to talk about was Mark as a musician. We would try. He would come over. It's like his dad, basically. You could wake him up at 2 a.m, stick an instrument in his hand, and he was ready to go. I think there was some point when we had done some day where we played 2 gigs in a row. And I said, man, I'm tired. He says, oh, I'm just getting warmed up, man. Just getting warmed up. Let's play again. Let's go find a jam session. I said, oh my God. So anyway, he was over one day. My wife can attest to this. And we were trying to play clarinet duets. This is just a little bit of background. Mark was raised or trained in a tradition with an Italian opera clarinetist, native of New York. And much like his parents, particularly his mom, he was trained in a tradition where you routined the song until you could not get it wrong anymore. This is a concert solo approach. I was trained in a tradition where you learn to read and you become very effective at processing music quickly. So we're reading this duet and Mark keeps getting lost. And all I wanted to do was play a duet. That's all I wanted to do, just play a fun duet. So finally I lost my patience. I said, for God's sakes, Mark, can you please not get lost? And at a certain point, I said to him, I said, you know what? I said, you have a wonderful sound and you play beautifully. I said, but for this particular type of playing, I said, I think I could help you based on my training. And he thought, and he said, okay. So for the last 8 years, he would come to my house once a week and he would take a clarinet lesson. Now, Mark makes a more glorious sound. I think I make a good sound. Mark makes a more glorious sound on the clarinet. And I think that, what is so frustrating, or I guess the word would be such a shame, is that over the past few years, he was making progress in a way that wasn't just playing better, but thinking differently about not only how you approach music, but how you approach things with your mind. The first 2 years I taught him, all I ever heard in the lesson was, I know, all the time. Mark, this tune is, this note's a little, this note doesn't shimmer like it should. I know. Da-da-da-da-da. I know. I said, if you know, why isn't it coming out through your horn? Well, I just, I think because of the... But in the last couple of years, I actually felt brave enough to use the Zen word with him. I'd say, when you do this and you maintain a calm mind and you approach it like this, and because he was very attention deficit, as you all know, which is one of the reasons he could do so many wonderful things. He had this incredible Yakubian energy, which is like a volcano, combined with ADD and combined with obvious brilliance in many areas. And so he was this all-encompassing person, but holding him down to actually concentrate on 2 lines of music that were sequential was very difficult for a long time. So he was making this progress and really playing some of the most beautiful stuff that he had played. We would play duets, and occasionally when he would really lock in, we'd finish and I'd say, well, that's not going to get any better. That's as good as that could be. That's the most beautiful thing. And making music with him, a lot of the music that you'll hear, most of the music that you hear behind the video presentation and the music that you heard coming in and the music that you'll hear as you leave is music that we performed together in some capacity, a lot of it at our house. And as I was listening to it and editing it and compiling it over the last couple of days, I was reminded just how kind of simpatico we were when we would play together. Just a very special relationship there. So in closing, I would say, lately, you hear a lot of, bromance stuff from guys. Hey man, I love you. I love you, man. Oh yeah, bro. You're like my brother. And I'm very, very lucky. I have a very large number of dear, dear friends, many of whom that I went to college with. But if I really think about what a brother is like, because I only have a sister, if I think about what a brother is like, in other words, someone who works your last nerve, someone who you argue with vehemently, somebody who you would want to wring their neck, and yet somebody who, amongst all of your friends, would be the first one to take a bullet for you, literally without thinking. The first person who's just the most loyal, the first person that, in spite of all of their bombast, was fundamentally kind. That's Mark. And so, I just miss him dearly because I miss a brother. And what I realize, reflecting on this philosophically, if I can, is that, we think that we head through life in a straight line, but we don't. We bounce off people, and the people that are in our lives affect us. And when we lose someone in the middle of their life, tragically or otherwise, we have a hole in our life, and it's a hole that sends us in a different direction. So I have no idea in the coming years how my life will change from not being with Mark, from not having him in my world, and from not making music with him. But I know it will be a poorer place as a result, and it makes me incredibly sad. But I love you, Mark.
Oh.
Next is another friend, Jim Light.
Hello, everyone. I really appreciate the opportunity from Lisa and Elizabeth to say a few words about Mark. I guess the first thing to say is that Mark was my best friend, and what's amazing, I really love what Chip expressed at the very end, because that was so true about Mark. I mean, there's all sorts of folks in this world that would have said, yeah, Mark's my best friend, because Mark was the type of person that, with all that huge amount of energy and frenetic activity, came was this great capacity to be a great friend, to be a great colleague, to be like a brother. And so I see lots of folks here nodding. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of us that were really fortunate to have that kind of relationship with Mark. And when I might have lunch with Mark like once every week or two, and then maybe we'd go, plan a trip to go ride. And but I didn't feel like I was missing anything, because I knew Mark had 25, 30 other things that he was doing at the same time. I met Mark about 15 years ago, and it was at work. I was working at TRW, and it just had become Northrop Grumman, and somehow Mark and I got on this proposal, and there were some guys from the East Coast that came out and decided they were going to boss everyone around and change everything different. And of course, as you know, Mark, that created a huge amount of conflict. So Mark and I would say, "Come on, let's go to lunch," and because Mark never took his lunch to work, right? I take my sack lunch, and he'd be like, "I forget that, let's go to lunch," So we go to lunch, and he would be strategizing. I'm going to tell that guy just to kiss my ass, and we're going to change this because they're completely wrong. They don't even understand. systems engineering or RF or radios or radars and so I'd be like a little like eyes wide open and be like, okay. So we'd go back to work, and he would go in some room and just be like arguing and practically to fisticuffs with these guys, and I'd be like, trying to like write some proposal and stuff like that, and get some work done. But I think that what was great about that experience was that in a just like you heard in a music context, I was in an engineering context at work doing engineering, and Mark and I quickly figured out it's great that it was mutual and joint, that we both knew a lot, and we could talk and we could discuss all this technical stuff, and there were things that he knew way better than me, and there were things that I knew way better than him, and we could like talk and collaborate and solve problems. That was the thing that Mark always wanted to do, was to solve a problem. And I think he approached almost everything in his life as a problem to be solved, whether it was a music problem or a family problem or a work problem, an engineering problem, or whatever it was. He loved to solve problems, and when folks were around that didn't want to solve problems but wanted to be part of the problem, then he was very intolerant, and he really could not stand those kind of people, and so I really aspired to that. I still aspire to that, and so when I, not long after that, I quit and I went over to Boeing, and was working on a big program, and was in a lot of trouble and stuff, and Mark was not really that happy with what he was doing at the time, and so I got him a job there. I convinced him to come over to Boeing and for my boss to hire him. And we got to work together for several years, and then we started working on a side project. We did a little consulting for some friends. I mean, Mark knew all these people. He's like, "Oh, hey, come with me. We're gonna go like solve this problem for them. They're gonna give us some money." I'm like, "Yeah, cool. Let's go." Like I'm with you. And we had some projects, and some of them were sort of crazy, and we had a little company. We started our own company together, and actually got to solve a problem, and actually got paid a pretty nice amount of money there. It was great, and so we became friends, and I went to, as many gigs as Mark played. I went to like several, and the great thing about Mark is that, I could go and just and watch him play and just really appreciate just the skill, just the energy, just the life that came out, and the confidence that came out in his music. I will tell a little music story. So my wife's sister and her family, they're all musicians, and her sister has a recording studio up in Burbank, and they have lots of music friends, right? That's how it is, right? And they had like about once a year they put on like a show, like like an open house exhibition. They have art, they have music, they have all their friends come in and play and stuff. And I said, I told Mark about it. I said, hey, you interested? You come by and check it out, right? You can meet some other musicians and stuff like that. And so he did. So he came and showed up, and it got to the time when they were when they were going to start playing and stuff like that. And like Mark's like, yeah, cool, So they started playing, and there were musicians there that he had never met before. He pulls out his clarinet, and they just start playing. They just start, oh, do you know this tune? Lala's in the key of so-and-so. And so the guy starts playing the piano, and he just starts, and Mark just literally, he's playing, and it just fills the room. and he's just like, and he wouldn't stop, and oh yeah, and it just, you know, like that little short video where it just went from one song to another to another to another, and the guy playing the piano like, yeah, and my sister-in-law, and I love her, she starts to like, you know, it's like when someone's Bogart in the mic, right? She's like, you know, so they got like a little uncomfortable, and so eventually Mark like took a breath, and they said, okay, now our next friend's going to come in and play, right? And Mark's like, well, wait, I got my flute, you know, so I don't think he got invited back again. Mark and I, Mark bought a motorcycle, and he convinced me to buy one too, and I had learned how to ride a motorcycle like when I was in college. I took the class and all that kind of good stuff, but then when I came out here to LA, I never took it up. And so, you know, I went and took the motorcycle safety class, and the first time I took it, of course I passed the test. That was the easy part, right? The written test. But then I failed the riding part. You know, when you're riding out on the parking lot, I couldn't do it. The instructor came to me after like the second part of the test and said, "Yeah, you're not going to pass." So of course, I already bought my bike. Mark said, I know a guy who knows a guy from Raytheon, and he's got a bike down in San Diego. Let's go buy it. You should just buy it. It's $2,000. Just buy it. I said, okay. I wrote a check. I said, let's go get it. You know. And so I spent like a couple months like practicing just around town and everything like that. And I went back and I took the class and then just breezed through it and stuff. And so Mark and I could talk about all the different things you do, like to, you know, riding techniques and stuff like that. And we had a lot of fun. We took a couple great trips up to Shaver Lake, and twice one of the most enjoyable rides I've done has been from Pine Mountain, from Dave Fritz's house, out this road that goes out to, is it 38 or 83 or something like that? It's some highway out there, out to like Mariposa. And man, that was just such a great ride. And Mark and I, one day we said, let's just skip work, you know, screw it. And so I said, come on, let's, you know, screw the man, whatever, let's go. And so we met up, and we rode up to, and we went all along Angeles National Forest Highway, and rode up in Angeles Crest, and just spent pretty much the whole, you know, like a good 4 or 5, 6 hours. I went up to Mount Wilson and just did a good ride through that whole area, and we just had a great time. I love to ride with Mark because, you know, if I rode in front, then he would like come up and he'd be like uncomfortably close off my bumper, you know, and so I'd get all nervous. So I'd always let him go first, and then I would like adjust and get in the right side of the lane or something like that, and that worked great. And you know, sometimes you just have those kind of friends that, you know, it's okay that they're the alpha, you know, you just let them be in charge, and you come along and you just enjoy the ride. So Mark's been a great friend. My personal religious belief is that, you know, this life isn't all there is. That our spirits do live forever. That there'll be and so Mark may not be able to communicate, and may not be able to sit down, may not be able to listen to him play for a while, but I have a personal belief and a personal testimony that'll happen, and there'll be a time when we can get together And I'm happy to like work engineering problems with him, and I'm happy to just sit and listen to him and his friends play great music. And that doesn't, none of that's lost. It doesn't go away. I really believe that. So I'm going to miss Mark, and I'm going to be thinking about him often, and I know I share the same love that all of you have. That, I mean, it's like Chip said, and I'm not embarrassed to say it either. I really love Mark, and I'll miss him, and I'm grateful for this chance to share this with you. Thank you.